The rain fell over Ridgewood like a curtain of gray shadows, slicing through the evening light and washing the small suburban town in a hush of cold silence. The Collins family house stood at the far end of Maple Drive, an old, warm wooden place with red bricks and ivy crawling up one side. From the outside it looked inviting, almost peaceful, but inside that house, something unspoken had been gripping the air for a long time, something no one talked about. Evelyn Collins believed her family was stable, ordinary even. Her husband, Matthew Collins, was a calm, thoughtful man who spent evenings repairing things in the garage. Their 16-year-old daughter, Lily Collins, was bright, stubborn, and spent too much time on her phone. Their life was normal, predictable, familiarly routine. Evelyn Collins believed her family was stable, ordinary even. Her husband, Matthew Collins, was a calm, thoughtful man who spent evenings repairing things in the garage. Their 16-year-old daughter, Lily Collins, was bright, stubborn, and spent too much time on her phone. Their life was normal, predictable, familiarly routine, or at least it had been, until the day Ethan Price arrived. He came on a Thursday afternoon, carrying nothing but a duffel bag and a letter from Matthew's distant cousin Mark. Ethan was 19, quiet, polite, almost too polite, and he had the kind of eyes that always looked like they were studying something. Or someone. Evelyn didn't know then that everything in her home, every trust, every secret, every bond was about to be tested. It all began 3 lines into his first introduction, right when the Collins family stepped into the living room with him, shaking hands, shrugging the rain off their shoulders, and offering him a place to stay, just for a few weeks, because that was the moment the story truly started, and that was the moment the danger entered their home. Evelyn welcomed Ethan warmly at first. She was raised to be kind, and kindness was her default. But something about him, his silence, the way he scanned the house, the way he observed the pictures on the mantel, something made her feel a faint chill. She ignored it, blaming the rainy weather. Matthew didn't share that feeling. He lit up when he saw Ethan. "Mark's boy. You've grown up fast. Last time I saw you, you were 5. Ethan gave a small smile. "People grow, I guess." His voice was low, steady, almost too steady. Lily barely looked up from her phone. "Hi, I'm Lily." Ethan nodded. "I've heard about you. Straight A student, right?" That got her attention. She frowned slightly. "Who told you that?" Ethan shrugged. "Your dad mentioned it in one of the letters with Mark, just trying to be friendly." It seemed normal enough. Until later, Evelyn realized, Matthew had never been in contact with Mark for the past 5 years. So how did Ethan know anything about Lily? But in that moment, she let it pass. They gave Ethan the guest room upstairs, right next to Lily's room, and served dinner. He ate with perfect manners, answered questions politely, told them he needed a peaceful place to figure out his future, maybe find work in town. Everything about him sounded reasonable. But that night, as Evelyn washed dishes and watched his reflection in the glass window, she noticed him watching Lily. Not in a creepy way, but in a careful, analytical way. Like Lily was a puzzle piece he needed to understand. When he caught Evelyn's eye, he quickly looked away. She said nothing. At midnight, Evelyn woke suddenly. A soft thud echoed upstairs. A door clicked. A faint shadow moved in the hallway. She slipped out of bed and peeked through the slightly open bedroom door. It was Ethan. He stood in the hallway, staring at the family photo wall between the bedrooms. Photos from birthdays, trips, holidays, school events. He leaned closer to one picture in particular. A picture of Matthew holding a newborn Lily while Evelyn sat in a hospital bed smiling. Ethan touched the frame gently, then whispered something under his breath. Evelyn strained to hear, but the words were too soft. "Ethan," she finally asked, stepping into the hall. He froze, startled. "Oh, Mrs. Collins, sorry, I couldn't sleep. I was just looking around." "At 2 in the morning?" He gave an awkward smile. Jet lag. You came from the next state, Ethan. For a moment, guilt flickered across his face. Then he forced a laugh. Right, sorry. Habit, I guess. I'll go back to my room. He left quickly. Evelyn stood staring at the wall, feeling that same chill again, that same quiet wrongness. The next morning she told Matthew. He chuckled. Ev, he's just a kid. Don't overthink it. Lily added, Mom, you're being paranoid. He's fine. But Evelyn wasn't convinced. Over the next few days, small things began happening. Tiny things most people wouldn't notice. One evening, Evelyn found the basement door unlocked, even though she remembered locking it. Another night, Lily complained her diary had been moved on her desk. The living room photo frames were slightly angled in a different direction. A ceramic mug cracked on the kitchen counter with no explanation. And twice, just twice, Evelyn walked into the living room to find Ethan quickly closing his notebook. Every time she asked him questions, he gave calm, harmless answers. But calm answers didn't explain why the house felt different, why shadows seemed longer, why doors seemed lighter when they should have been closed, why the Collins family suddenly felt watched. One afternoon, Evelyn found Ethan in the garage, staring at Matthew's old family albums. These were hidden in a box, Evelyn said, startled. How did you find them? They were right here, Ethan answered smoothly. I was just cleaning the shelves and came across them, but the box had been buried under 3 old tool crates. No one could come across it. Another evening, Lily received an anonymous message on her phone. Be careful who you trust at home. She assumed it was a prank from a school friend. She laughed it off. But later that night, as she stepped out of the bathroom, she saw Ethan standing in the hallway again, standing perfectly still, looking at her room door. He smiled when he realized she'd seen him. Sorry, Lily, just heading to the guest room. But her room was in the opposite direction. 2 weeks passed. The Collins family kept brushing away the unease. Then came the day that changed everything. It was a Sunday morning. Evelyn was cleaning the shelves in the living room when she found something behind the books, a small notebook, black cover, old pages filled with tiny handwriting. It wasn't theirs. She opened it. The first page had one line, "The Collins family owes me a life." Her heart slammed in her chest. She flipped to the next. There were dates, places, observations. Matthew leaves the house at 8 nows. Lily's room door squeaks when opened at night. Evelyn keeps her bedroom key in the second drawer. Her hand shook. She turned to the last written page and froze. There was a sketch of their house, detailed, every room labeled, except one, a red circle drawn around the basement. Below it, answers are hidden here. And under that, 3 words, words that made Evelyn feel the world tilt beneath her. He knew about me. Her breath caught. Who knew about him? Who was he talking about? She heard a soft step behind her. Evelyn turned sharply. Ethan was standing there, face calm but eyes cold. Mrs. Collins, he said quietly. That's private. Evelyn's heart hammered. What is this? Why are you writing about my family? He stepped closer, too close, his voice almost gentle. Because I belong here. No, you don't, Evelyn whispered. He tilted his head, studying her as if deciding something. Matthew didn't tell you, did he? Tell me what? Ethan smiled faintly, a smile with sadness hidden under it, or anger. Why I'm really here. Before Evelyn could respond, the front door opened. Matthew walked in with groceries. Ethan instantly stepped back, expression changing into the calm, polite boy again. Evelyn? Everything okay? Matthew asked. Evelyn looked at Ethan. Ethan stared back. His eyes said one thing, don't. His voice said something different. Mrs. Collins was just helping me find my notebook. Thank you. Evelyn said nothing. She couldn't speak, but she knew something now, something huge, something dangerous. Ethan wasn't just a guest. Ethan wasn't just visiting. Ethan had come here with a purpose, one that involved her family, her husband, and the basement, and Evelyn Collins realized something chilling. This boy didn't plan to leave. Not now, not ever. The days after Evelyn discovered Ethan's notebook felt heavier than anything she had experienced in her quiet Ridgewood life. Every sound, every shadow, every footstep in the house carried a different weight now, an invisible tension that slowly tightened around her chest. She pretended to live normally around Matthew and Lily, but inside, her nerves were on fire. She could not unsee the sentences she had read. The Collins family owes me a life, he knew about me, and the haunting red circle around the basement. From that moment forward, she watched Ethan like a hawk. The problem was, he knew. He absolutely knew she was watching him, and the silent war between them had begun. Ethan moved around the house with a certain calmness that terrified her more than anger ever could. He smiled politely during breakfast, asked normal questions, offered to help Matthew in the garage, and even complimented Lily's artwork. But behind that softness, Evelyn could feel the storm. Ethan's eyes followed her when he thought she wasn't looking. His footsteps outside her bedroom door became more frequent, soft, deliberate, late at night. And worst of all, he kept going near the basement door, brushing his fingers on the handle, lingering as if deciding whether to open it or not. Evelyn had tried asking Matthew about Mark again, Ethan's supposed father. "When was the last time you heard from him?" she'd asked casually while they folded laundry. "Years ago," Matthew had replied easily. "Haven't kept contact. Why?" She had wanted to scream, "Then how did Ethan know about Lily's grades? How did he know anything about us?" But she swallowed the questions, because Ethan wasn't just watching, he was listening. That evening, when the sky turned a dim, bruised purple, Evelyn found Lily in the kitchen scrolling through her phone while preparing noodles. "Did you get any more strange messages?" Evelyn asked carefully. Lily blinked. "What strange messages?" "That anonymous text, the one warning you." Lily shrugged. "Oh, that. Probably just Mia messing around. She does that sometimes." Evelyn's heart sank. "Lily, you should have told me if there were more." "Mom, relax," Lily said with an annoyed scoff. "Everything's fine. You're acting weird." Before Evelyn could respond, Ethan walked into the kitchen. He didn't say anything at first. He just leaned against the counter, watching them with unreadable eyes. "Smells good," he said finally with a soft smile. Lily smiled back, which made Evelyn's skin crawl. Ethan turned to Evelyn. "Mrs. Collins, do you need help with anything?" "No," she said quickly. Too quickly. He noticed. "Are you sure?" "I said no." His smile didn't change, but his eyes sharpened just a little. "As you wish." He left the kitchen slowly, footsteps measured. Lily raised her eyebrows. "Mom, seriously, what is wrong with you?" Evelyn didn't answer. Because how could she explain that the polite boy living upstairs was keeping a notebook about their family, watching them, studying them, writing disturbing messages about the basement? She couldn't drag Lily into this, not yet. 2 nights later, something happened that pushed Evelyn past fear into pure dread. It was 1:48 a.m. She woke to a soft tapping sound. Tap, tap, tap. It wasn't coming from the window. It was coming from the hallway. She slipped out of bed silently and opened the door a crack. Her breath caught in her throat. Ethan was sitting on the floor outside Lily's bedroom door. Sitting, in the dark. His head was bowed slightly, as if listening to something inside Lily's room. Evelyn's hand flew to her mouth to stop herself from gasping. After a few seconds, Ethan slowly stood, placing his palm gently on Lily's door, almost tenderly. Then he whispered something so faint she barely heard it. "Soon." Evelyn slammed her door shut and locked it, trembling uncontrollably. She couldn't wait anymore. She had to tell Matthew. She shook him awake. "Matt," she whispered urgently. "Wake up, please." "What's wrong?" he mumbled. "It's Ethan. Something is wrong with him. I saw him outside Lily's room in the middle of the night. Matthew sighed irritably. Ev, come on. He's a kid. Maybe he was going to the bathroom. He wasn't, she snapped. He was listening, whispering. You're imagining things because you don't like him. I'm not imagining things, she hissed, tears in her eyes. He has a notebook about us. He watches us. He knows things he shouldn't. He keeps going near the basement. Ev, Matthew cut her off sharply. That's enough. Ethan is family. Evelyn stared at him in shock. Family? Ethan wasn't family. At least, not to her. Something wild flickered in Matthew's eyes. Defensiveness. Almost protectiveness. You're overreacting, Matthew insisted. I'll talk to him. Tomorrow. Evelyn swallowed a bitter lump. You're not listening. Ev, sleep. She knew talking further was useless. And worse, Matthew's reaction wasn't just denial, it was guilt. Matthew was hiding something connected to Ethan. The next morning, Ethan was all smiles. He greeted Evelyn warmly, offered to pour her coffee, and asked Lily how school was going. But Evelyn noticed the faint shadows under his eyes, the result of being awake at night, watching, listening. Later, Matthew left for work, Lily went to school, and Ethan stayed home doing job applications. Evelyn wanted to avoid him, but the house felt too small. His presence filled every hallway. Around noon, she walked into the living room and froze. Ethan was sitting on the couch, staring at one of their family photo albums, one Evelyn was sure had been stored away in the attic. Lovely pictures, he said, without looking up. You all look happy. Where did you get that album? Found it, he replied casually. In a box. In the basement? She asked sharply. A slow smile stretched across his lips. Would it matter if it was? Evelyn's breath caught. Stay out of my basement, she whispered. Ethan finally looked up at her. His eyes weren't cold, they were sad. Deeply sad. It's not just your basement, Mrs. Collins, he said softly. It's mine, too. Her stomach twisted. What do you mean? Instead of answering, Ethan stood, walked past her, and paused just inches away. Matthew should have told you a long time ago, he murmured. But secrets rot houses, don't they? She felt her knees weaken. What are you talking about? Ethan leaned close, too close. Ask your husband, he whispered, or check the basement yourself. He walked away calmly, as if he hadn't just shattered her world. Evelyn's hands shook uncontrollably. She waited until Ethan went upstairs, then grabbed the basement key, heart pounding violently. As she approached the basement door, a surge of nausea hit her. She turned the key slowly, the metal clicking louder than thunder in the silent house. The door creaked open. Cold, stale air rushed out. She stepped inside. 1 step, 2 steps, 3. The darkness swallowed her. She reached for the pull chain of the old bulb and yanked it. The basement flooded with dim yellow light, and Evelyn screamed, not because of blood, not because of a body, but because the entire basement wall, every inch of it, was covered in pictures. Their pictures. Photos of Lily from childhood to now, photos of Evelyn at work, in the market, at home, photos of Matthew taken secretly, photos taken from angles only someone inside the house could capture. Her wedding pictures were cut in half, Matthew's face removed, and in the center of the wall, circled in red ink, was a single picture, Matthew holding a baby. But it wasn't Lily, it was another baby, a cute baby boy. The handwriting beneath said, Me. Evelyn staggered backward, clutching her mouth. Ethan was cold, polite, strange. But this changed everything. Ethan wasn't just watching them. He wasn't just a guest. He was claiming something impossible, something terrifying. Ethan Price believed he was Matthew's son. And Evelyn realized with suffocating dread, if Ethan truly believed this, then nothing in this house was safe. Not the past, not the truth, not her family, not even their lives. Evelyn stood frozen in the dim basement, her breath caught somewhere between a scream and silence, her eyes transfixed on the wall of horrors Ethan had created. The photos, the scribbled notes, the names scratched out, the eerie circles, each detail gripped her throat tighter than the last. But the one picture that shattered everything was the small, faded photo of Matthew holding a baby boy. The baby Ethan claimed was him. She pressed a trembling hand to the concrete wall for support. Her heart pounded so violently it felt like it would burst. This can't be real," she whispered, forcing herself to look away from Ethan's handwritten word beneath the picture. Me. The room felt smaller every second, the air heavy and suffocating. Everything in her screamed to run, but her legs remained glued to the ground. She tried to steady her breath, but a sudden soft thud from above snapped her back to reality. Someone was upstairs, and Evelyn knew exactly who. Ethan. She scrambled up the stairs, shutting off the basement light, bolting the door carefully so he wouldn't sense anything had been discovered. By the time she reached the living room, Ethan was descending from upstairs with that same unnerving calmness, a folded towel in his hand. "Everything all right, Mrs. Collins?" he asked casually, tilting his head slightly. She forced a smile, one she hoped didn't look like pure terror. I was just checking on something." "In the basement?" His voice was soft, but there was an undercurrent, sharp, knowing. Evelyn felt her throat tighten. "Yes, looking for the fall decorations." Ethan stepped closer, placing the towel neatly on the couch arm. "Did you find what you were looking for?" She swallowed hard. "No." His eyes lingered on her just a fraction too long, searching her face. For lies, for fear, for the truth. Then he smiled politely. "I'll be in my room if you need anything." He walked upstairs with steady, unhurried steps, like a predator leaving the room, not because prey escaped, but because it wanted the chase to last longer. The moment he disappeared from sight, Evelyn collapsed onto the couch, hands trembling violently. Her mind raced. The baby photo. Matthew, holding a child she'd never heard of. Was the basement wall real? Yes. She saw it with her own eyes, but Ethan was obsessed with Matthew, with their family, with their house. What if he staged that picture? What if he manipulated everything? Or worse, what if the picture was real? She had to ask Matthew, not softly, not politely, now, immediately. She grabbed her phone with shaking fingers and texted him, "Come home now, emergency, no details." She couldn't risk Ethan seeing. After sending the message, she erased the text instantly. 40 minutes passed, agonizingly slowly. She paced through the kitchen. She checked windows. She listened for Ethan's footsteps upstairs. Every creak of the house made her jump. At exactly 3:17 p.m., the front door swung open. Matthew rushed inside, breathless, panic in his eyes. "Ev, what happened? Are you okay?" She didn't answer. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward the laundry room, far from Ethan's hearing range. She shut the door and locked it. "Matthew," she whispered urgently, "I need you to tell me the truth. No lies, no hiding." He looked confused. "What truth? Are you Ethan's father?" Matthew froze, completely. His face drained of color, his breath caught mid-sentence. It was the reaction of a man who wasn't surprised by the question, only terrified that it had finally been asked. Evelyn stepped back, her chest tightening. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's true." Matthew rubbed his face, sinking onto the washer machine, staring at the floor. "Ev, please listen. Just tell me." "I didn't know," he burst out. "I didn't know he existed until a few months ago." Her heart pounded. "A few months ago? And you didn't tell me?" "I was trying to protect you," he said desperately. "And Lily. I didn't know if it was real or some scam. Mark contacted me." "Mark? The same cousin you told me you haven't spoken to in years?" Matthew swallowed hard. He reached out suddenly, told me that before he died, the woman he had been with confessed something, that she had a child, my child. "You cheated on me," Evelyn whispered, the words cracking with betrayal. "Ev, it was before we were married," Matthew whispered painfully. "I didn't even know she was pregnant." Evelyn's legs felt weak, part relief, part devastation. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wasn't sure," Matthew said. "I didn't want to break our family over something uncertain. Mark said there were no records, no proof, nothing. He just wanted me to know." "And you believed him?" "Ev, I didn't know what to believe." Evelyn pressed a shaking hand to her forehead. "Why didn't you tell me when Ethan came here?" Matthew's eyes went wide. "What do you mean?" "Ethan didn't come because of that. He came because Mark said he needed a place to stay. That was all." Evelyn felt the room spin. "You mean you never told him? You never said anything about him possibly being your son?" "Of course not," Matthew insisted. "I barely processed it myself. Ev, he doesn't know." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. No. He definitely knew. He wrote it on the basement wall. Evelyn stared at Matthew, her voice shaking. "Matthew, Ethan thinks you knew about him. He thinks he belongs here." Matthew's face contorted in confusion. "Why would he think that?" Evelyn grabbed his hand tightly. "Because he's been watching us, Matt, studying us. He has a notebook filled with details about all of us. And the basement, oh God, the basement. There's a wall of photos, pictures of all of us, and a picture of you holding a baby boy. He wrote me underneath it." Matthew stumbled back like he'd been punched. "No, no, that photo, Ev, that photo was taken when Mark asked me to hold his friend's baby once, at a barbecue. I remember because you spilled soda on my shirt just after." Evelyn's entire chest tightened. "Then Ethan thinks that baby is him." "But it can't be," Matthew whispered, horrified. "Evelyn, Mark told me that the child's mother died years ago. If Ethan was that child, why would no one know? Why would Ethan show up now? Why—" Suddenly, a loud thud echoed outside the laundry room door. Both of them froze. Matthew whispered, "Did he hear us?" The doorknob twisted, then stilled, then twisted again, slowly, intentionally. Evelyn's heart slammed against her ribs. Matthew stepped forward, voice wavering. "Ethan, is that you?" Silence, then a faint whisper through the crack under the door. "Secrets rot houses." Evelyn's entire body went numb. Matthew's face turned pale. Another whisper followed, soft, chilling. "You should have told her." The doorknob slowly stopped turning. Quiet footsteps padded away down the hallway. Evelyn collapsed against the dryer, shaking uncontrollably. "Matthew, he knows everything. He's been listening. He heard us." "Ev, we need to get Lily and leave the house right now." They rushed out of the laundry room, but the moment they stepped into the hallway, they both froze. Lily's bedroom door, wide open, her backpack on the floor, her phone on the bed. But Lily was gone. In her place, on the pillow, Matthew saw something that made his blood turn to ice. A note, written in Ethan's handwriting. "I'm taking what should have been mine." Evelyn's scream tore through the house. Evelyn's heart pounded so violently that it felt like it might explode in her chest as she stumbled toward Lily's empty room, her hands shaking uncontrollably. And Matthew grabbed her arm, his own face pale and rigid with fear, whispering urgently that they had to move fast, to call the police, to do anything before Ethan could do whatever he planned. But as they reached the front door, Evelyn froze because a faint scratching sound echoed from the basement, soft at first, then growing steadily louder, deliberate, like someone was dragging something heavy across the concrete floor. And both of them exchanged a terrified glance, realizing in that moment that Ethan was not only taking Lily, but he had been waiting for this opportunity, watching them, anticipating their every move, and now he was showing them that he controlled the house, every corner, every shadow, every sound. And Evelyn felt her stomach drop when she remembered the notebook, the wall of photos, the strange obsessive markings Ethan had made, and a horrifying thought struck her. What if Ethan had been preparing for this for weeks, months even? What if nothing they had done had been private, and the basement wasn't just a place of secrets, but a trap, a command center for everything he had planned? And before she could process the panic fully, Matthew whispered that they had to follow the trail, that Lily might have left something behind, some clue, some indication of where Ethan had taken her. And Evelyn's eyes darted across the room, landing on Lily's backpack, still lying on the floor, slightly unzipped. And inside she noticed a folded piece of paper, edges crumpled, as if Lily had stuffed it in hurriedly. And with trembling hands, Evelyn unfolded it, revealing a hastily drawn map of the neighborhood with a single red X marked on an abandoned house at the edge of town. And suddenly, all the blood drained from Matthew's face as he recognized the location, realizing that it was a place from his past, a place tied to Ethan's real origins, a place that he had hoped to never think about again. But now his daughter's life was literally pointing them straight to it, and Evelyn didn't waste a second, grabbing the car keys from the counter as Matthew called the police, reporting the abduction, describing the note and the map as best as he could while Evelyn started the engine, heart hammering in her ears, adrenaline surging with every second as she glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting Ethan to appear from the shadows behind them. And the drive was tense. Every passing car, every pedestrian, every flickering streetlight making them flinch, imagining Ethan watching them, predicting their route, ready to intercept them if possible. But Matthew tried to calm himself, instructing Evelyn to stay on the main roads, not to stop for anything, to trust the route Lily had drawn. And as they neared the location, an eerie sense of familiarity settled over Matthew, a memory from years ago when he had once been forced to confront the truth about Ethan's past, the truth he had tried to bury, the secrets of a family long forgotten, of mistakes that had consequences far beyond what he could imagine. And Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized that whatever awaited them in that abandoned house, it was directly connected to Ethan's obsession, to his identity, and that they were about to step into a place where nothing would be the same again. And just as the house came into view through the pouring rain, dark and ominous at the edge of the forest, Evelyn noticed movement. Faint shadows flitting past the broken windows, the unmistakable silhouette of Ethan standing there, watching, waiting, as if he had predicted their arrival down to the second. And her breath caught in her throat, the car slowing as Matthew whispered for her to stop, their eyes locked on the figure, a mix of terror and anger flooding through them both. Because this was no ordinary confrontation. This was the culmination of weeks of manipulation, of obsession, of unseen planning. And as they stepped out of the car, rain soaking their clothes instantly, Evelyn realized with sickening clarity that Ethan had turned the house into a fortress, every broken window, every boarded-up door, every shadowed corner a calculated trap, and their only chance was to move cautiously, silently, to try and reach Lily before Ethan decided to act. But even as they approached, a low, deliberate laugh echoed from the broken doorway, a sound that was chilling, precise, confirming that Ethan had been waiting for this, that he was aware of every heartbeat, every movement, and Evelyn felt her stomach twist in fear and rage simultaneously, gripping Matthew's hand as they stepped inside the ruined foyer, the air thick with the scent of mildew and decay, broken furniture scattered across the floor like evidence of a life long abandoned. And then, at the far end of the hallway, a single door stood slightly ajar, light flickering through the cracks, and from it came a soft, almost playful humming. Lily's voice, fragile, scared, but unmistakable, and Evelyn's heart surged with a mix of hope and terror as she whispered Lily's name, and the humming stopped abruptly, replaced by silence so heavy it pressed down on their chests. And then came a single step from the shadows, slow, deliberate, and Matthew instinctively moved in front of Evelyn, shielding her as a figure emerged. Ethan, calm, composed, almost serene in the chaos, eyes fixed on them, a faint, unnerving smile on his lips, and Evelyn's voice trembled as she demanded, "Give her back, Ethan! This isn't a game!" But Ethan's expression didn't falter, and his voice, quiet and controlled, sliced through the silence. "She is mine. She has always been mine. You should have told her everything before she came into my world. Now it's too late." And in that moment, Evelyn realized that Ethan's obsession wasn't just with possession, but with recognition, with a twisted sense of family justice, and the way he moved, the calculated steps toward the center of the room, the way his eyes never left Lily's door, made it clear that he would not allow them to leave without confrontation. And Matthew, heart-hammering, whispered to Evelyn that they needed a plan, that rushing in would be suicide, that they needed to think. But Evelyn's maternal instinct overrode all caution, and with trembling hands she darted forward, calling out Lily's name again, and at that moment Ethan's eyes flickered with something darker, sharper, and with a swift movement he pulled the door open completely, revealing Lily cowering inside, her eyes wide with fear, and Evelyn rushed to her side, shielding her body as Ethan took another slow step forward, and the air between them crackled with tension so thick it felt almost physical, and Evelyn, summoning every ounce of courage, said, "You are not taking her, not today, not ever." Ethan paused, the faintest flicker of hesitation crossing his features just for a moment, and then his smile returned, wider, colder, more unnerving than before, and he said, "You don't understand. You will never understand until you see the truth, and the truth is mine to show." Matthew stepped forward, placing himself directly between Ethan and the doorway, heart racing, knowing that any wrong move. As she saw him step closer to Lily, hand outstretched, and the low, deliberate tone of his voice broke the silence. "You can't protect her. She belongs to the past you never faced." Matthew's jaw tightened, anger and fear battling in his chest as he shouted, "She's our daughter, not yours. You have no right." But Ethan's smile widened, almost sad, almost regretful, and he said, "I only want what should have been mine. I've waited for this moment longer than you can imagine, and I'll not be denied." Evelyn felt a surge of maternal ferocity rise within her, pushing aside the fear, the panic, the cold dread that had gripped her for weeks, and with a sharp inhale, she stepped forward, voice strong, trembling yet undeniable. "No, you will not take her, not today, not ever. We are her family, and nothing you say, nothing you do, can change that." Ethan paused, the faintest flicker of hesitation crossing his face, and in that pause, Evelyn, Matthew, and Lily acted, could trigger disaster. And Evelyn felt a cold determination surge through her, knowing that they were on the edge of something irreversible, that the next few minutes would define everything. And even as Ethan's hand reached slowly toward Lily, the shadows of the abandoned house seemed to shift, the wind howling through broken windows, the faint creaking of the old roof echoing like a countdown, and Evelyn realized that they were now trapped in Ethan's world, forced to confront not just him, but every secret, every lie, every hidden piece of the past that had led to this terrifying moment. And as the tension stretched to a breaking point, Lily's trembling voice whispered, "Mom, Dad." And Evelyn swore in that instant that she would do anything, face anything, risk anything to bring her daughter back, even if it meant stepping completely into Ethan's darkness, even if it meant confronting the full extent of his obsession and the horrifying truth that had been buried for so long. And with that resolve, she tightened her grip on Lily's hand. Matthew positioned himself as a shield, and the storm outside seemed to mirror the storm inside, the house itself trembling under the weight of what was about to unfold, knowing, as did Evelyn, Matthew, and Lily, that nothing would ever be the same again. Evelyn's heart raced as she tightened her grip on Lily's trembling hand, the abandoned house around them groaning and creaking, as though it too were holding its breath. And Matthew positioned himself between Ethan and the doorway, every nerve screaming, every instinct alert, because they all knew that one wrong step now could mean losing Lily forever, and the shadows Ethan had so carefully crafted to dominate the house seemed to shift and dance in anticipation of the confrontation. The dim light from broken windows casting long, jagged silhouettes across walls covered in dust and memories. And Ethan's eyes, calm yet piercing, followed their movements with that unnerving precision that had haunted Evelyn and Matthew for weeks, the same cold intensity that had filled every glance, every whisper, every step he had taken since arriving in their home. And in that moment, Evelyn realized that this wasn't just about control or obsession anymore. It was about the truth he believed no one deserved to know, the truth he had carried with him, hidden, nurtured, and twisted. And her breath caught simultaneously, Matthew moving closer to block him, while Evelyn reached for Lily, pulling her slightly behind her. And Lily, despite fear, clung tightly to her mother, as if drawing strength from her presence. And in that tense moment, the air seemed to hum, thick with anticipation, every creak, every whisper, every shadow, a drumbeat of suspense, until Ethan's gaze flickered toward a broken window, the wind whipping through, rain lashing against the walls, and suddenly he raised a hand not toward Lily, but in surrender, almost as if releasing the weight of a decades-long obsession. And his voice softened, just enough to shatter the terror he had built around them. Maybe I wanted the truth too badly. Maybe I only wanted to be seen, to matter, and I forgot that love isn't taken. It's given. Evelyn blinked, heart hammering, unsure if relief or disbelief should wash over her first, and Matthew slowly exhaled, muscles trembling, realizing that Ethan's confrontation had not been for destruction, but for recognition, for an answer, a place in the life he thought was stolen from him. And as the storm outside began to ease, as though echoing the resolution unfolding inside, Evelyn stepped fully toward Ethan, voice still strong but gentler now. You are seen. You matter. But you cannot hurt the ones you love in the process. You cannot take what isn't yours to claim. Ethan's shoulders sagged, tension releasing like a rope being cut, and he nodded faintly, tears glimmering in the corners of his eyes, before stepping back, slowly retreating into the shadows of the house he had so meticulously controlled, almost disappearing into the darkness, leaving Evelyn, Matthew, and Lily together, hearts pounding, drenched in rain and relief, the weight of weeks of fear and obsession lifting slowly like a fog dispersing under the morning sun. And in that moment, Lily whispered softly, trembling yet safe, "Mom, Dad, thank you." And Evelyn hugged her tightly, whispering reassurances she had kept locked in her heart for too long, while Matthew held both of them, realizing that despite the chaos, despite the secrets, despite the near loss, they were still together, still a family, stronger now because they had survived. And as they stepped outside into the clearing storm, the sun breaking through gray clouds, birds returning to the trees, the abandoned house behind them silent and empty, Evelyn finally allowed herself to breathe fully, a mixture of exhaustion, fear, and relief flooding through her. And she realized that the experience had changed them all, had forced truths into the open, had made their bonds unbreakable in a way nothing else could. And as they held each other, watching the storm clouds disperse, the memory of Ethan's obsession lingering but no longer threatening, Evelyn reflected on the journey that had brought them here, the nights of fear, the whispers in the dark, the shadows that had crept into their home, the basement, the notebook, the notes, and the terror that had threatened to tear their family apart. And she realized that though the past had been dangerous and twisted, and though Ethan had been a storm they could barely withstand, the real strength had been in their unity, in their courage to face fear together, and in their ability to hold on to love and hope, even when everything seemed lost. And as Matthew gently brushed rain from Lily's hair and Evelyn's hand found his, fingers intertwining, she knew this was the moment that marked not just survival, but a rebirth, a reclaiming of their life from fear. And in that thought, she felt a strange peace settle over her soul, a quiet victory, as if the house itself, dark and abandoned, no longer held power over them, no longer contained shadows that could threaten their light. And they drove home slowly, together, hearts still racing, minds still processing, yet feeling stronger than ever. And Evelyn looked at Lily in the rearview mirror, smiling despite exhaustion, and whispered softly, "We're safe. We're home. And nothing can take that from us now." And Matthew nodded, glancing at her with a smile full of relief and love, and in that small moment they all knew that the nightmare was over, that Ethan's obsession had ended not with violence, but with understanding, that secrets had been revealed and faced, that courage had triumphed, and that together they could rebuild, stronger and closer than ever. And as they approached their familiar neighborhood, the sun shining through dissipating clouds, Evelyn reflected on everything that had happened and realized that sometimes the greatest suspense, the most terrifying unknowns, were the ones that forced you to confront your family, your love, and your deepest fears. And she knew that though the memory of Ethan would linger, the bond between them would remain unshakable, unbroken, a testament to their survival. And in that calm after the storm, Evelyn finally allowed herself to relax, to smile, to feel at peace, knowing that the Collins family had faced the impossible and emerged together, stronger, braver, and ready to face whatever life might throw next, holding each other tightly, stepping into the light, together, finally free from the shadows that had haunted their house for so long, the echoes of suspense fading into memory. And in that moment, they were just a family again, whole, safe, and truly at home. So, this is the story of Evelyn, Matthew, Lily, and the mysterious guest, Ethan. A tale of secrets, suspense, and family bonds tested to the limit, showing that even in the darkest moments, courage, love, and unity can light the way, and that sometimes the greatest dangers teach us the most about ourselves and the ones we love.